evening, everybody. Welcome to On the Couch with Mandi. Today we have a special guest. You will never ever get another opportunity to speak to him. So please ask as many questions as you can. And he is going to introduce himself to you guys. I just want you to know that he is an MP, and so he will tell you. I just want to switch off the comments, Cameron. Yes.
100%.
Okay, Ian, just please introduce yourself to our viewers.
Sure. So my name is Ian Cameron, as you correctly said, and I am currently the chairperson of the Police Portfolio Committee in the National Assembly. It's been almost a year. Can you believe it? So it has been quite the learning curve.
Okay. So I invited Ian just to hear firstly about his role, and also I know that he is responsible, or maybe he's the chairperson of the group of the committee that is responsible for holding the police accountable at in Parliament. Okay, fine. I don't know what is happening here. Okay. So, Ian, just briefly tell us what your job entails. I know it's been like a hectic few months or almost a year, like you said. So just tell us briefly what your job entails, and just briefly.
Yeah, sure. So very shortly, it's basically two-pronged. The one, as you correctly said, is oversight, and it includes oversight over about 5 departments within the policing space. So firstly, the Office of the Minister of Police, which includes the Civilian Secretariat of Police. So that's the one critical one, and they are typically responsible for legislation with regards to policing, etc. in South Africa. They are responsible for guiding and implementing matters or making recommendations regarding the minister and his work. And then obviously it would include the South African Police Service, as you correctly said. It includes IPID, the Independent Police Investigative Directorate. And then it also includes the Hawks, DPCI, for priority crime investigation. And then it also includes CIRA, the private security regulator of South Africa, which at the moment, and we'll probably touch on that, is quite a difficult topic with a lot of challenges presented to us, as with most of these departments. So, our job is then oversight of the executive responsible for that, but a very specific part of the oversight. And I think that because of all the crises in South Africa, we can very easily be bogged down with all of the, going into crisis control the whole time. But we actually have a very important function, and that is how do we influence policy and systems to make sure that some of these issues don't happen. Now, you can imagine we're constantly busy having to prioritize things because there are just so many problems, and obviously you want to help everyone. And I can give you a very good example. So how much time do I have to explain this? It'll take 2 minutes.
You most certainly have 2 minutes.
Okay. I always, I have to keep time the whole time in the committee. So basically, I can give you a good example. What happened today in the committee. So I think you actually wrote about it. I haven't read it properly yet, but I think you wrote about it. And so 2 or 3 weeks ago, one of the members from the Police Portfolio Committee sent me a request to ask a station commander from Florida to come and appear before the committee because of alleged irregularities and issues regarding the investigation of murdered Jaden Lee Meek, the little boy that was found dead outside his mother's apartment. Immediately agreed to it. I asked the committee. Everyone agreed unanimously that yes, they must come and report. So yesterday I get calls from the police saying that they've got no problem with reporting. Everyone will be in attendance, which obviously welcome. But there have been several significant developments over the previous 48 hours. Is there any way that we can somehow, uh, uh, make a plan for us not to go into that part of the investigative detail? They don't want it to be detrimental to the case. And I get that. But at the same time, I also understand the frustration because if you've been treated badly or you feel you've been treated badly as a community and you constantly see these transgressions, obviously you want to be heard. I'm the last person that needs any convincing regarding that. I myself have represented many, many, many victims as an activist myself, so I get it. But at the same time, I also know, after representing many of those victims, that any small mishap could mean that a case is eventually struck off a roll and the potential criminal could be let off the hook. So we have to be extremely careful how we do that. So I think that's the part of this job that it's very difficult. You get criticism. Today, I was told that I'm undermining people. I was told that I undermine intelligence. I've been called all sorts of things. And essentially for me, I just want to make sure that the criminal justice system functions properly. And I really hope that we'll get this right. But yeah, that in a nutshell makes it challenging. I also think lastly that there's a perception sometimes that the committee, especially since the COVID pandemic, that we all just jump on and we have these uh, public sessions, and that's not the case. There are significant statutory obligations and responsibilities for the committee, just in terms of, for example, a budget and the performance plan of the police, and making sure that the budget and the performance plan speak with each other. And I know it sounds like, I don't know, to me it sounded like Greek at the beginning, but the police budget is massive, and we need to make sure that that's managed properly. So it's challenging to fit everything in, and it's challenging to please everyone. I don't think it's possible.
Ian, you speaking about a very interesting topic, Jaden Lee, and I didn't watch live, but I went back to the tape. I rolled back the tape, and it was quite. I don't want to say horrific, but I mean it was in that neighborhood to hear how. Okay, fine. So you do understand that the community members that joined the meeting, they were actually there because of their concerns, genuine concerns about the case. I mean, they are outside, obviously looking in. They don't know what exactly is happening. You and I know with the Mia Bota case, we were outside. We didn't know what exactly was being investigated until, when was it? Was it in September when we were at Philippi
Yeah.
College, and then we heard that Cold Cases now has the is actually busy with that investigation. Still today, we still don't know what happened to Mia. So now they're avoiding a similar situation where this case is cold, and when there aren't any constant updates, people do feel that nothing is happening with this case.
Yeah.
So I just feel like, at that time, at that particular moment, it wasn't I don't know if it was handled well. Let me just put it that way, Ian. And also, when when SAPS then answered you, what did they say? Where is the investigation right now? Is it still happening? What is going on with Jaden Lee's investigation? Only the things that you can tell us, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah, no, so it certainly is, and that was the reason for the call, to the point where the National Commissioner even called me. So there's no doubt that it is being taken seriously. So it definitely is. As far as I understand, they're waiting for forensic reports, and I assume that it has been prioritized. That's what I understood from them. So we will. Yeah, I think what also makes it challenging, like on a day like today, is that we didn't actually officially invite anyone from the public to speak at the committee. So while on the committee, I suddenly see all these hands popping up, and I'm told that they've been invited to speak. And I said, but who? And one of the members said, but I wrote to you about this. And I said, I understand that, but this is not a public hearing. So you see, and this is important for clarity. I'm so glad we get an opportunity to speak about it. As soon as a meeting is convened for something like this, I have to physically apply for that meeting, even if it's every single week. I have to physically apply with an exact description of what's being discussed that meeting, and that then goes to the House chairperson, and it is either granted or not. Now, obviously, you've got a set schedule, so it shouldn't change according to that. But like this was an extra. So at the same time, I only get 4 hours once a week for the committee, and it's very frustrating because my committee sits in the same time that the president has cabinet, so the police minister can't always attend. So now what happens is that I have to still make sure that we fulfill our statutory obligations, and we need to handle ad hoc matters. So like today's was an ad hoc matter that I obviously wanted us to deal with urgently. And that's why I immediately agreed with it and pushed it into this week's presentation. So, I read the comments from members of the public, and I think it's unfair that that an expectation was created to those members of the public and that they were told to fly to Cape Town. They literally flew to Cape Town with an expectation that wasn't officially communicated by Parliament. And I today on the chat during the meeting, I sent one of the activists my cell phone number, and I said, please just pop me a message and let's engage. We will, go into this in full detail as we've done with many other cases. But it's just important that's explained, because I think the impression that is very, very easily created is that we invited them, which is not true. We told them that they would present. That's also not true. And that we then denied them an opportunity to speak, which is also not true. And then the last thing that I also read was that they wanted to hand over a presentation or a petition. That was never communicated to me as the chairperson of the police committee. And in fact, I only read about it in your article. So that it makes it frustrating, because it's clear to me that what was communicated to them was certainly not what was communicated with or by us.
That is news to me. But we are not going to go back and forth like this is what I heard and this is actually what happened. But anyway, thank you for explaining that, because it did come across some type of way, and actually speaking to them also and hearing them hearing how frustrated they were coming out of that meeting. But there's one thing that I want us to talk about. It is cases that are never solved. There are cases that you find that a boy was shot and unalived, and that never goes anywhere. Do you have this data where you are, obviously, I know that would be a lot of it. I mean, you have stats on how many solved cases there are out there and the percentage of cases that are never solved, that have gone on for years and years, and also the justice system that is also dragging, uh, um, there's so many cases actually that I can talk about that have been going on for many years. Like the Amatoso case had been happening for 8 years. That is a very long time. But then we have cases like, your Jocelyn Smith, and people will say to me, that dragged, that was such a long time. I said, no, that was actually a very quick turnaround time, because if they were arrested in March and then by this March they are busy with the trial, that is really not a long time. It's not a long wait. So how do you then deal with those cold cases? If you are doing your oversight, how far do you go with those cases? And also, I do want you to touch on IPID, because people don't really know what the role of IPID is, and they don't know how to approach, that entity. And, like they know that it's in Belleville. Some don't even know that it's in Belleville. They don't know where to go and what or the weight of whatever. Like, do we now wait until something serious happens, or if my dog is killed by a police officer, do I then go to IPID, or do I just bury my dog and move on?
Yeah, yeah, I think just in terms of cold cases or cases that are unsolved, I can't tell you the frustration. So when we had the budget review, the BRRR process a few weeks ago, the first round, when we thought that the budget was going to pass, and now we actually have to redo it in the coming weeks. But we went through that, and SAPS had to present their annual performance plan. And in that annual performance plan, one of the goals that they set themselves, targets, was that they need to, I think, successfully detect 11 or 12% of murder cases. Just think about that. That means that they will likely only solve every 1 out of 10 murders. That's what it comes down to, and that would be an acceptable target. And I stopped it. Several of the colleagues on the committee also stopped it, and we just said it can't be. And what they said from a statistical point of view was that they need realistic targets. And I said to them, well, if this is realistic, we've got a far bigger crisis than what we think, because it certainly can't be that is a realistic target. So I'm told that's been adjusted during the next round of that specific discussion or that session. We will go back to it, and then hopefully we'll see an improvement. The point is just that, just in terms of murder, for example, murder is the most accurately reported crime. So it's a very good indicator of where we are at with regards to crime. The problem that we very often have, and we had this in the Western Cape now a few weeks ago, where the Provincial Commissioner of the Western Cape would say, no, but we've got an extremely high conviction rate. He was talking between 85 and 95% successful conviction rate. But what he fails to mention is that those are only the cases that were chosen to be prosecuted. So they aren't the cases, all of the cases that were registered for murder. So you could, in other words, have 100 murders, only one of them is chosen to actually prosecute, and it could be successful or not. So the message or the communication on it is certainly not accurate, or not as accurate as it should be. So we have now started saying that, let's use organized crime as an example. We would like to see some kind of a joint report function where we have the NPA along with the police giving us a joint report, that we can have a more accurate picture of what the reality is. If it's a joint report, they need to agree on what is said in the report, because at the moment it's also very easy for the police to say, no, but the MPA did this or this or this, and then the MPA can say, no, but the police did this or this or that, and the one just blames the other. Where we say, and I feel very strongly about the fact that it needs to be more integrated. This includes correctional services, the MPA, even parts of social development needs to play a role. So, and then in terms of IPID, there is a big frustration with regards to IPID not necessarily being so public that you could actually go and visit them or report something directly to them. Now, even if we wanted them to have that physical infrastructure, they simply don't have the human resources to do that at the moment. IPID has been extremely constrained in terms of resource allocation over the years, and they've got a significant shortage of resources. With the new budget, I think there will be some improvement, and I'm really hoping that implementing it will be quite quick. We'll come back to the physical issues inside IPID shortly, but IPID responsibility, in very short, is basically to investigate serious police misconduct. The police also have, for example, an anti-corruption unit. They've got an internal inspectorate. You can report to, if it's Hawks related, you can report to the DPCI judge, which is usually a retired judge that has an oversight function of the Hawks. You've got all these different bodies. My best suggestion to people, if they have matters like this, say, for example, you're aware, and this is a serious case, but you're aware of a police member that raped someone or brutally assaulted someone or murdered someone, um, then obviously you can go directly to IPID. But it's also not wrong to contact the Civilian Secretariat of Police or to contact the police committee that we can at least advise you as to who to contact. But there are several remedies. And then you also, in terms of inspectorate in the police, you've got provincial and national inspectorate, and everything's certainly not perfect. But I must say, even before I had gone to Parliament, especially with, it was actually with Mia Botha's case, and you'd remember Liesel de Jager's case, that pastor that was murdered by her husband in KZN. With those cases, inspectorate played a significant role in ensuring that, the relevant things were addressed to eventually get it to a point of being transferred to a competent unit.
Where do they get this information from? Is there maybe can they go besides just getting it from the police station? Because we're talking about people who don't really have access to information.
Yeah. Look, the internet is the easiest, Mandi. I mean, I understand the access to information issue. I would prefer to try and use the internet for it, to not necessarily expose yourself. It becomes very challenging, excuse me, when it relates to corruption or serious police misconduct, because you can easily become a target, especially in communities, let's say, that have a serious gang issue or an extortion issue, that type of thing. It unfortunately happens quite a bit that members of the police locally are implicated in such activities. And therefore, obviously, you don't want to make yourself a target. It's also very difficult in communities that have a very high crime level, and especially when it links to organized crime. You can make yourself a target quite easily. So, in my opinion, internet's the best option, and there are ways of doing it anonymously too. I recently, and again, for the sake of anonymity, I won't say all the detail, but I recently assisted someone with several properties, one or two actually, in a known organized crime area where they were the thought was that police were collecting extortion money from those properties. And then we could assist them in guiding them how to anonymously report this for action to be taken. And I'm told that action was taken. So there are ways of handling it.
Okay, so what we're going to do now, actually, if you just joined us, my name is Mandi. I'm a journalist in Cape Town. You are on the couch with Mandi, and I am talking to Ian Cameron. Ian, I'm just going to take questions. I'm going to open the comments for just like 2 minutes. Then after that, we're going to come back to Ian. Ian, I want us to talk about the budget. Does it reflect the work that is done on the ground? So that is what we'll be talking about after taking these comments. Anyone with questions, and please, if you're asking a question, stick to the topic and do not ask if Ian is married or whatsoever. Just stick to the topic, please, and thank you. So the comments are open. How do you think internal corruption within the police force affects the fight against crime?
It's got a massive impact. In fact, and this is the issue, it's not just on ground level. I'm aware of at least two major generals that have been dismissed over the past 6 months, where there are several types of allegations and cases against them, criminal too, for that matter. And I think it siphons through right down to grassroots level. In my opinion, and we have pushed for this, it is now officially for the first time a resolution of Parliament, and it should start later this year. We have made it a resolution that police must do a skills audit. But part of the skills audit would include a lifestyle component to determine whether they are fit for purpose or not. What I do see that seems positive, I hear that what they call I think it's a section 34 inquiry, which is basically a board of fitness into someone's ability to hold office. And it seems that that's also happening more often, especially with senior members where there are quite a few questions around. I can tell you now that corruption, especially on, let's say, in middle and senior ranks, if that's not resolved, we can't expect much change on ground level.
And I just want to ask something now. Okay, sorry. Let me just take this one. Are there any community policing forums or youth programs that are working well, that is in your opinion?
Yeah, there are places. There are some places I recently actually saw, and this wasn't a policing effort. Actually, in Mitchell's Plain, an example where Golden Arrow bus services, along with MTN, the provincial Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, there was a whole list of entities, launched a free transport model for young soccer players. And it basically means that they can attend X amount of free matches, especially over weekends, where families literally used to have to use their last bread money to try and have their children attend matches. So I think that the mindset in that is very positive, and I think that's the kind of approach we need to follow to also keep kids off the street. Something that I must say in terms of programs, I've noticed in some communities there are phenomenal programs, but then when you go and move around in communities, there are a lot of parents themselves that are absent. And I'm aware of social ills and so on, but it does bother me that sometimes, late at night, you'd be doing oversights in a specific area or community that's renowned for violent crime. And then you see the amount of young children still playing on the streets at 11 p.m. in the evening. And then I listen sometimes to community members that complain about that their kids aren't safe. But the very people sometimes complaining are the ones not looking after their own kids or that are involved in substance abuse of some kind. So there's a very, very large social aspect of this that needs to be considered. We can have all the programs we like, but we need to really have buy-in from people to say that but we are going to do our best as well.
Okay, here's a third question. What is the way forward with the police with all the gang violence on the Cape Flats?
Sure. So I'm aware that they launched a program or a operation of some kind today. I think the National Commissioner himself briefed the members for it. That was the reason for him not being at the police committee this morning. So I personally don't think that the uniform model works. The impression that I always get, it's like recently with Mtata, with the extortion matters. They send a whole lot of uniform members into an area. It stabilizes for a short while, and when they move away, everything just continues as per usual. It doesn't help. And we can go look at gang violence all across the country, whether it is in Eldorado Park, whether it's in the northern suburbs of Nelson Mandela Bay or in the Cape Flats. I could tell you now that every single time they do that, it does not solve the problem. So what we feel strongly about, that there must be some kind of a decentralization of investigative power. We need to make sure that we've got is done in cooperation with, for example, Metro Police or a province. Making sure that you've got competent people to fast track that is important. And then in terms of let's say, illicit firearm activity by these gangs, it's important to also then make sure you can fast track conviction. But in order to do that, or prosecution, in order to do that, you need to make sure that you can actually do the relevant ballistic and forensic testing. And at the moment, that's usually where everything falls through the cracks. With regards to gang violence in the Cape Flats, for example, the conviction rate for illicit firearms is less than 5%. Now, there's no reason for that. Why can't we work with universities? Why can't we work with local law enforcement or the province? Why can't we have detectives on that level that can assist and work with SAPs? It should be seen as a force multiplier, not as competition. And I think for too long, especially with regards to gang violence, I get the impression that police was used as a political tool. And I'm really hoping that over time that will change, because we don't have the luxury, even if the police had all the capacity or all the let's say good wishes that they need. They simply do not have the resource capacity to be able to get the job done. And then lastly, I think it must be an integrated approach. You need to make sure that the prosecutors work with the investigators directly. This thing of completing a docket and then handing it into court and hoping that it will be prosecuted is it's not effective, and very, very often, if not followed up by the victim or family of the victim, no one will follow it up at all. It just kind of dies a slow death, and it ends up being closed indefinitely, which is not the way forward. The prosecutor should be involved immediately. Something like gang violence is a very good example for that to be able to work. And then obviously the last part is proper intelligence-driven policing. I know for a fact that in many areas of the country, anti-gang unit fights blind. And it's not me saying so, it's them telling me that, because they don't have their own decent intelligence capacity.
I'm just thinking now, where does it put the state witnesses like in this whole thing? Because remember, if we are fighting gun violence, there are people that are witnessing these things. There are people that know that so and so has a gun, but they are afraid to come forward because the state will not protect them. And where does that, like, would that not maybe assist in terms of in terms of fighting violence, number one, and having these state witnesses protected?
Yeah, so I know I'm sorry, I sound like a broken record, but I know that there is not that they don't really have capacity to properly protect them. There is recently, it does feel like there's a positive push to really get more people to enter witness protection. But my problem is that after the case, very often people then feel exposed, and they're like, okay, but I've done this now. Now the person's convicted. And then what very often happens, and this is what a lot of detectives complain about, is that they do get the conviction, but then the offender, who's a very violent offender, comes out on parole quite quickly. So now he or she finds out that you were the one that testified, and then you're at risk. So there's a lot of work to be done there. And again, it comes back to an integrated approach, because at the moment it's kind of siloed. The detective is working on the matter, and it only really comes to the prosecutor's attention unless they are proactively working together. But otherwise, it really only comes to the prosecutor's attention much later on. I must tell you that I understand that people are scared of testifying. When it comes to gang or extortion related matters, there is a significant risk. And just again today, I saw with one of the cases, I read an article that police members even get intimidated. They need to go and testify, and they then get intimidated. It was with the SASA fraud, with the card fraud. That big case.
Stellenbosch
Yeah,
University.
yeah, yeah. That whole thing, and I saw that the cops were threatening to withdraw on the case, on the investigation, because they're getting threatened now. And they shouldn't withdraw. That's also the wrong message that they're sending. But the point is that we're at a stage where even the police are being threatened and intimidated. So, maybe the last thing, Mandi, that I must mention on this also is the expectation that young people, or young police members, sorry, need to locally fight, not just young, any police member for that matter, needs to locally fight gangs and organized crime is unrealistic. It can never work. You can't be expected to arrest someone that lives three blocks or three houses away from you. Your kids go to school together. They know where your wife or your husband works, whatever the case may be. So it's just simply not realistic.
Okay, there is. I'm not sure if this is a comment. We were about to close the comment section now. We wrote to the Department of Justice as well, and we haven't heard back regarding to mishandling. I'm not sure. Maybe they wrote something before, but I did not see that. So, 10 111, our favorite topic. 10 111 call center agent seems inadequate and members are unable to serve all communities.
Yeah, huge discrepancy in terms of human resources, but also I think technologically very slow or very old. When you go to some of the 10111 call centers, it is truly inspiring to see how some of the members there keeping on despite the criticism and the challenges that they face, because they are doing a job sometimes with not even a quarter of the amount of people that should be doing a shift. So I have so much empathy and sympathy with them. And it comes to back to a management issue. I mean, I've done oversight at 10111 centers, and I can tell you now that they do not get the treatment that they deserve. They should be considered the heartbeat of emergency policing, and it sometimes feels to me that that simply doesn't happen. In terms of police reaction, it's important to understand that 10111 is literally the life source to reactive policing. Without them, police again fights blind. It's almost similar to not having intelligence. I know 10111 is reactive, but it's the same principle.
Ian, I spoke to today. I spoke to Florentia. I just forgot her name. She's from
From
Gqeberha.
Nelson Mandela Bay, yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So she was telling me that there was a 19-year-old who was unalived 3 minutes away from the police, but the police took 3 hours to get to her. The scene was contaminated. It wasn't cordoned off. Everybody was just walking around, and she was laying there for hours. Now, are we? Is somebody going to be held accountable for such things? Because this is probably not the first time that this has happened, and this is not just about Gqeberha. This is about you spoke about reaction time, and if you are 3 minutes away from the police station, I mean, surely you should not take 3 hours. There should be no
Yeah,
excuse.
no, there is no excuse. No, there's no excuse. Sometimes locally we do, but they don't have a vehicle, or they don't have enough vehicles. But to the public, there's no excuse to that. I almost want to go as far as saying, don't make your problem mine. The police should sort that out. The whole thing about vehicles is it's disgusting to say the least. I recently had a matter. I try and wherever I drive, if I see police members standing next to a road or something, I try to stop and say hello and ask them, what is their experience? How do they do what they do? What are the challenges that they face? And I can tell you that I very often, I'm trying to pull up examples here, but I very often speak with them about vehicles. And if you listen to the turnaround time, let me tell you this. Protection and security services at Parliament, the static, the uniform protection police that are there. At the moment, I think Parliament's unit has got at least 5 vehicles in the garage, and most of those vehicles have been in the garage for close to a year. The canine unit at Parliament, they meant to have something like 12 dogs. I think they have 3 at the moment, and 2 or 3 of their vehicles are in the garage. Now, if that's the case for a national key point, okay, that they can't do that, then clearly to me you start realizing why it's in dire straits on community level. Now, in my opinion, the community should get the priority attention, but it just goes to show that across the board it is broken. And the worst part is PSS, Protection Services, is a national unit. It's something that falls under the national department, so it's not something you can blame on a province or something like that. We've visited stations recently where they've only got 50 or 60% of their vehicles working. Recently, public order policing in the Western Cape, they had, it was something ridiculous. They had something like 27 or only 28% of their vehicles working. And then every time it has to, we have to fight about it, and then suddenly you see a little bit of improvement. But there's no excuse for that. And I'm aware of several of those cases. What we're trying to do as well, you would have noticed if you listened to today, when I did the opening remarks of the committee, I said that we mustn't just look at the numbers. So what I always try and do is that we need to include the names of victims, and always make sure that if there's an issue like that, we need to attach it to a name. This is the lived experience of a real human being, because I think it can very easily become a very cold experience, almost just statistical. And we have to constantly remind ourselves that no matter how many of these cases there are, it remains a human being. It can never be okay.
Ian, I think I'm going to take two more questions and then we'll go back to the topic. What is going to be done about the youth being unalived in Samora Machel since the start of the week? I'm not sure if you've heard about this, Ian. This afternoon, I don't know, I think she's a 19-year-old girl or something, but she was coming from school, walking with friends. An unknown shooter went straight to her, unaliving her instantly. And apparently, yesterday, her boyfriend was unalived in the same manner. So, are you aware of that? And I mean, how can you assist, or I mean, yeah, how can you assist that community?
It's difficult. I mean, I would love to have some kind of operational power. I think it's probably the biggest frustration is that I don't have operational power. Sometimes I ask parliamentary questions regarding appointments, and the answers I get, I can just shake my head. Where things are just justified for the sake of it, and then before your in Afrikaans jou heilige siel, that it simply is not the truth. Um, so no, I think in terms of capacity, at least for temporary capacity, even if it's with regards to investigation, one can follow that up. I know that the MEC of Police Oversight and Community Safety has already followed it up, and I know that they are involved in that process. Obviously, if it comes to me, then we will question it as well. I think, Mandi, what makes it, that sounds like I'm making an excuse, and I don't mean it that way, but a lot of the work that we do, unfortunately, is after the fact. So it's difficult to be preventative from our side just purely because we don't have operational capabilities or capacity.
Okay, so let's get back to the budget. Before we went on to the comments, I asked you, do you see this exorbitant, budget being used in a useful way, in a way that South Africans can actually, have faith in the police again? There's large sums of money that are going into GBV, yet it's happening every day. There's also a large sum that is going to detectives. Are we seeing that?
It seems so. There is definitely more resources that seems to be going to channel towards detectives. It also, I've heard, is going to be looked at in terms of incentives for detectives. You see, at the moment, it's far more incentivizing or rewarding, rather, to go and work in a uniform capacity. You've got more off days, you get paid overtime. There's a whole lot of perks compared to being a detective where you get absolutely nothing. But you very often have to do a far more specialized task. Now, you don't want to detract one from the other. You need to compare apples with apples. It's two completely different roles. The point is just at the moment, detectives don't have any real incentive to do much extra work. They're completely overburdened. We've got a huge shortage of detectives. So we're hoping to see an improvement in that. Something that we've questioned time and time again and will continue to do is the fact that they still haven't actioned the redeployment of retired or ex-detectives that want to return to the police. I just simply don't see an excuse for that. Every time there's a new story about why, we just simply do not see a real explanation, or let's rather say a legitimate explanation for it not being completed.
Okay, I think this one now is a very hot topic. The devolution of policing powers to the Western Cape and to the city. So in the next few weeks, I will have JP, to unpack that. But as the police portfolio committee, like, what do you make of that? And is this something that you think should be passed? And in what way do you think that the city and the province will actually help solve many cases and actually fight crime?
Because I think, first of all, the impression is sometimes created like all policing powers must be given just to the city and to the province, and then everything will be magic after that. And I don't see it that way. I think it must be an extension of responsibility or shared responsibility. We need to look at, and we can even do it with specific matters. Let's say firearm related violence with gangs and those investigations. We can even ring fence it on that to start with and test it with some of the forensic matters. I don't think it should be seen as competition. It must be seen as a force multiplier. I think too often it's seen as a political competition as well, and that is not the idea. As I said earlier, even if SAPS had all the capacity and all the right mindset in the world, they simply don't have the capacity or the resources. Even if they wanted to, they won't be able to do it because there is such a big resource shortage. One important part is, as well, as things stand at the moment, I think in terms of financial capacity, they would also have less pressure on them with regards to the limited national budget that they have. So it would also be a shared financial responsibility, which could work well. Something I do realize, though, sometimes that there's also a little bit of and I guess I say it tongue in cheek, but there's an ego problem where it's almost this thing of one doesn't want to hand over to the other because of you saying I can't do my job. And I think we're long past that. We don't have the luxury of having stupid arguments about that. We just need to get the job done. People are being killed disproportionately compared to the majority of places on earth. And it simply can't continue like that. So therefore, let's share the responsibility and let's see if we can resolve it.
Okay, so just maybe give me an idea of how, okay, say now the national police, national police minister, the police minister hands over the powers to the city and Western Cape. So now what happens then? Does SAPS remain SAPS as it is? And does it, because I know that it's about the detective services, because JP will say that we cannot investigate. We don't have the powers to investigate. So they will arrest and then hand over the file to the police to open a docket, right? And so now, what does the city want? They want to arrest themselves, whoever they're arresting, and then open the docket themselves and then also investigate, while SAPS focuses on maybe they have another arrest that has nothing to do with this one. I'm just trying to make sense of it.
Yeah. So it basically very shortly just means that say I'm a Metro Police member, I do the arrest. There's a Metro Police detective. That detective can do all the relevant work with regard to the docket and take it directly to the prosecutor. It's literally that simple. So, I mean, one would have to look at the technicalities in terms of where do you detain a suspect, all of those types of things. But just in terms of the basic operational adjustments, it would basically mean that let's call it a metro detective would also be able to investigate and enroll the case at court for prosecution.
Would we say that we are slowly trying to change Cape Town to a little US country? um, because I mean, it's only there where you see that, like, the cities, they have their own
Mm,
police and they are
yeah,
police department. It's not like your metro police or law enforcement. But tell me
yeah.
now. So I hear what you're saying. So does that not will that not maybe require budget? Are we thinking in terms of that? Because now you have to train uh, law enforcement who were never trained maybe in investigation. So in terms of budget, would that not maybe eat into it, or that would be made available?
No, it could eat into it. It should hopefully then be made available. I mean, I can't speak on behalf of the province or any local government for that matter. But I think, again, if the political will is there, I think there are many ways to skin a cat. So we'd be able to go and determine how we can get there. And I think there are many ways to do it. I don't think it's impossible. And again, it doesn't need to be done everywhere overnight. It's something that can be phased. It's something that we can start at a certain point and build a blueprint. In terms of the US, I sometimes feel like they've got too much police. There's a book about Glock, the pistol brand, and it's a fascinating story about how Glock was developed, and Gaston Glock, the guy that developed it, and it's really a very interesting story. But in that book, you start realizing how many different police forces and services they have in the US. It is just staggering. I mean, thousands upon thousands. I would get so confused. I would never be able to really work there. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. In this case, I don't think we really have, in my opinion, a choice of decentralizing some of our policing. Again, just in terms of national capacity, it's failed in many cases. There are pockets of excellence still. I do believe it. I see it. And I think there are some incredible people still in the police. There's no doubt. But generally speaking, and according to the lived experience of South Africans, all of us for that matter have experienced some kind of horrific crime. And at least some of us are still alive to tell the story. But that being said, we're not successful at the moment with the national model. The last part of that, Mandi, that I must explain is that when we look at I love all the sound effects. It's quite impressive. It adds like drama. But it's also important that we realize that we can't have one generic blueprint for policing across the country. I can't go and use the model that I do for urban policing in Thohoyandou and try to use exactly that for rural policing in Malmesbury, because it doesn't work that way. It's completely different. And that's another part that SAPS, I think, needs to adjust to. The Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime, in most of their recent reports, all say the same thing. They always say the following. They say that South Africa is stuck in this rut where we do high numbers of low-level arrests and we deploy large amounts of uniformed members. So we basically just flood the streets. We make all of these arrests. It's like Operation Chanela. I read about hundreds of thousands of arrests. But if we go and check how many of those arrests actually turn to convictions, I think we'd be shocked.
Okay. Shall we take one or two questions, like really one or two questions? We have to let you go. Guys, is there anyone that has any question? I'm taking only two questions on topic about what we just spoke now, the budget and also devolution of powers. Okay, I don't see any question. So, Ian, I'm beyond happy that you came to join me on the couch, and hopefully I can have you back here.
Absolutely.
And next time, can I have a clear yes, I am coming?
If I say I'm there, I'm there. Sometimes I don't respond again afterwards. I struggle with all the WhatsApps, but I always say to my wife, I feel like a makeshift 10111 lately. So, but yeah, if I say I'll be there, I'll be there. So thank you so much, and I must thank you, Mandi, for everything you do. Your name precedes you, and yeah, you do an incredible job. So keep going. I don't always know how you stay sane. Maybe you're not sane. Maybe that's just what I see of you. Oh, okay, that explains it all. So keep doing what you're doing. You do incredible work.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you. Good night.
Keep well. Bye-bye.
Bye.